Okay, Raquel, so let's take a look at this new set of essays that you've written. It's about local food and whether it's better for the environment and economy. Let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether the local production of food would be a solution to several current problems. Some believe that it would be better for the environment and economy. I do not believe on the simplicity of this idea. This essay will argue that it is almost impossible to avoid the long journey traveled by food around the world, using examples from the UK government to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, so good, but there's some problems. So this was a little strange for me. I do not believe on the simplicity of this idea. It's awkward and it doesn't really make sense. So I think what you could have said here is, I believe this idea is a little simplistic, or I cannot support this idea fully, as I believe it is overly simplistic. Okay, so you could have said some things like that. And then you're missing an it here. So this essay will argue that it is almost impossible. All right, and then other than that, you're okay. On the one hand, some people defend that it would be good if individuals were able to consume only the food produced by local people. Firstly, because that population would be self-supporting, independent of the production of other regions. Okay. All right. Now, can you give me some support for this? Back it up. Explain to me a little further. It needs a little more illustration, a little more example, something. Okay. The population would be self-supporting, independent of, okay. So how is that beneficial? Why is this such a good thing? Would it help the environment? Would it help the economy? So what are you actually saying here? Do you understand? You really needed to say a little more about this. Secondly, they would reduce the consumption of fuel with the transportation of food from other places. And that would be beneficial to the environment. Okay, why? How? So tell me a little more. Tell me the fact that food that doesn't travel so far needs less fuel. Therefore, there's less carbon monoxide being emitted into the environment, etc., etc. Okay, so this absolutely needed more development. Okay, let's see. On the other hand, there is ample evidence that local production is not enough to provide rich nutrition to everybody. The main reason behind this is that there are many places where the weather and the soil are not favorable to cultivating crops. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of all land in England is not good enough to produce anything, so 95% of the food in England needs to come from other countries. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that English people would not survive with only their own production. Okay. Yes, let's see about this for a second. Let me finish with your conclusion, and then we'll look at it a little more holistically. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that that although local food production seems to be a solution for some economic and environmental issues, it is unrealistic, mainly because some countries do not have appropriate weather or soil for diversified agriculture. Okay, so while I like what you wrote, there is a problem in terms of what you actually developed. So let me explain to you what I mean. The essay asked you to talk about if it's better for the environment and the economy. Okay, you answered that really, you answered it correctly here, okay, even though it was underdeveloped, as I've already said. But here, you essentially were talking about nutrition. Okay, so you were saying that in terms of nutrition, this idea cannot be supported. But they never asked you that. All right, they're asking purely in terms of environment and economy. So while you wrote was nice, I actually like the way you developed this paragraph. It's not on topic. Nobody asked you whether this would be good for people's overall nutrition. They asked you if it would be good for the environment and economy. So your focus here is incorrect. All right? So that's the problem with this paragraph here. So there are some good elements to your essay, but there are some things that you really need to work on. First of all, this being off topic and this being underdeveloped. All right, so let's take a look at your second essay. Okay, so I think this is your first task one. Just for future reference, when you do a task one for us, please make sure that you include the image in your document with your answer. I do need to refer to those, both for me to check that what you're writing is accurate and that you've included everything, but I also refer to it in my corrections, so please make sure that you include it. All right, let's see. This is the Intel and AMD one. So the bar chart compares the number of chips S sold by Intel and AMD in France during the 12 months of 2017. In the first month of the year, Intel had almost 2 times as many sales as AMD, whereas in December, the proportion of sales by Intel was almost triple those of AMD, with just over 100,000 and around 35,000 respectively. Okay, in June, Intel sales reached over 125,000, whereas AMD sold nothing. In the subsequent month, Intel sales fell considerably to around 25,000, while AMD's sales, careful with your spelling, climbed to over 100,000. Overall, the highest amount of sales was in February, when the total amount of chips S purchased was around, what number is this? That's not a number. And the lowest total quantity of chips S purchased was in April, with just over 60,000. Nevertheless, the best month for Intel sales was in June, and for AMD sales was in February. Conversely, the worst month for Intel was in July, and for AMD was in June. Okay, so there seems to be a little confusion with the way you organized your answer here, Raquel. What we typically do in a task one like this is we, as you did here, we have the introduction, and then this is the place where most people write their overview. The overview is supposed to be the most obvious trend, the biggest thing that you see happening, the thing that really sticks out most prominently. So what you could have done was say that the highest month for sales throughout the year was by Intel in the month of June. Or you could have said that while sales varied for both throughout the year, it appears that Intel sold more chips. Okay, so you're really just giving an overview of what it is you're looking at. So that's what's supposed to happen. My opinion is that it should come right after your introduction, although some people put it at the end. It's not supposed to have any data though. So, and one of the other things that we do is that we use the word overall in order to show our overview. So when I saw this, this really confused me because this isn't an overview at all. This is, I don't know what this is. It's just a lot of detail, but it's certainly not an overview. Okay, so the first thing is the introduction, the second thing is the overview, and then you should have typically 2 paragraphs talking about the details. There are a couple of different ways to do this. Some people like to break the year in half, so they talk about, for example, January to June, and then they talk about the second half of the year, talking about both, or some people separate them and then talk about Intel in one paragraph and AMD in another paragraph. But you didn't do either. So the way you organized your information was a little strange to me. Okay, so I would like to see you rewrite it more appropriately. Okay, so let's see. Grammar seemed to be okay. Nothing really too problematic. The vocabulary was fine, but like I said, it was the organization. There was no clear overview, so these are the things that were problematic in this answer. All right, go ahead and correct them both. Return them back to as corrected. Add to your error correction list, and let's see what you do in your next set. Okay, good luck to you.